Hello, everybody, and welcome to Holy Manticore Games. All right, guys, so we're going to jump right in. Eventually, we're going to go over how to make the Bloodycomb base with this dry dex spackling. This is a wall putty that is pink and it dries white. Use it to cover like nail holes and stuff like that. I'm also checking out these new like spatulas, and they're like marketed for oil paint application, but I'm using them as like spatulas for texture paints and this putty. So I'll leave a link to this kit of spatulas in the comments below, or not the comments, but the video description. I really enjoyed using them. They're well balanced, and right now I'm just kind of messing around with the putty or the spackle and the spatula, just to see how things turn out. So what we're gonna transition over to right now is filling a resin mold. It is a honeycomb resin mold that I found on Temu. I'll put a link to that in the description as well. And I'm just gonna fill it up with this putty, and basically at this point I'm just experimenting. I fill two big brown chocolate molds full of this putty. I tried making a strawberry, it didn't dry out well, and then I made a little tree stump that it came out decent, but I could have done like a second layer to reinforce it. Right now I'm just messing around with the different kinds of these spatulas just to see which one applies a better texture. So just going to show you how to check to see you fill the mold. So it actually took about 36 hours between wet and dry on this mold specifically. And as you can see, I filled a bunch of other molds. There's the tree stump, and then here I did two different textures on the chocolate mold, and then one more texture on the other chocolate mold. So you'll see those all come out here in just a minute. This one, I don't know if I rushed it or if it was just stuck and I could have saved it. I'm not sure, but it kind of crumbled and fell apart. This one looks super cool. I just need to apply the putty in a thinner layer, so that way it doesn't have this uncured texture on the front. So I probably should have done it in like 2 or 3 layers because it was kind of thick. But right now, just kind of checking it out and seeing what's gonna look cool, what's not gonna look cool, what parts that I just pulled apart will go together, and just trying to get my creative juices flowing. I do plan on making an entire sheet of that bubble texture, and I really like the way this honeycomb comes out. So I'll probably use that for some other stuff when I start building the Leviathan Tyranids, and using it for like little egg pods or something like that, and then doing like a green base or like a brown base, and then like filling it with green resin or something like that. So again, all I'm doing is just seeing what these little cubes of texture are going to look like on this base and how I can manipulate it. Ultimately, I did decide on the honeycomb, and then ended up creating the Bloodycomb base for the ultramarine that I made that short about. The consistency of the spackle is very soft. It's easily modified. It didn't give me any problems while I was cutting it, or while I was, shaping it onto the base. It super glued really nicely, and it held the paint really good. So if you have some, or you can pick some up, it was really cheap from Walmart. So I'm not 100% sure if every Walmart has it, but it has been at every Walmart that I've seen. This is not the first time I've had to buy it, but this is the first time that I used it for these molds, and I really enjoyed the way that it turned out. That little container of super glue is my new favorite way to get super glue. I went through an entire bottle of Army Painter super glue, and it was a pain in the butt. So I decided that I was going to try these little bottles of super glue, and it ended up being amazing. I didn't use the whole thing, so I was able to put a little push pin in the tip of it and save it for another time. And then after this video, like the next day, I picked it up and pulled the push pin right out, and the super glue was still good to go. Unlike the Army Painter super glue, that every single time that I was done with it, I had to like drill a new hole into it. So if you haven't tried it, I highly recommend trying the little bottles of super glue, just for convenience. I think it cost me like 10 cents a piece. I got a whole bunch of them in a pack for like $3. So can't complain. I used an X-Acto knife to trim the edges after the glue had dried, and I angled it off of the angle of the base, and it sliced through it like a hot knife through butter, and I couldn't complain. The paint that I'm getting ready to do is like a dingy honey yellow color. I'll link it in the description. But first, I sprayed everything with Gray Sear base priming spray paint from Citadel, and now I'm going to use this goldish yellowish color from the Learning to Paint starter kit from Citadel. I wasn't 100% sure how the texture of the base was going to react to a strong stiff brush, so I got the fluffiest brush that I could and gently painted it. But I think you could probably just use whatever brush that you have, and it's not going to crumble under the pressure of a regular paintbrush. I was just being cautious, and I really don't think I will need to worry about that in the future. It held the priming spray paint really well, and then because it held that well, it obviously holds the rest of the paint well, because the primer is what's holding on to it. So all in all, I really enjoyed working with the spackle to make the texture of the base, and it just opens the door for more creative stuff to experiment with. When I started this video, I was definitely just focused on trying to find a spackle-based texture to do a base with, because I had one left over. I had no real intention of using it to base a mini, but as soon as I was done with it, I looked to the right of my desk, and there's a whole bunch of busted up minis or isopropyl alcohol soaked minis that I've rescued from other people who are getting rid of them. And there's a stripped down Space Marine missing an arm, and I said, you know what would be real cool? let me throw some paint on this guy. I'm gonna make this base look super neat. I'm gonna make it look like he's, you know, wounded, running through this alien terrain. And, you know, I think it turned out really well. And hopefully you like it, and hopefully you keep coming back. But walking through the rest of this process, I'm getting my Temu UV resin out. This stuff is super cool, dries crystal clear. So I just drip it into the comb, the honeycomb right there. So I was just trying to see, I was like, maybe it'll make it look like there's, you know, little puddles of blood. I'm not 100% sure. But we're just on the creative experiment train and hitting it with the UV light. Flip it around. You know, I didn't spend a whole ton of time on each honeycomb full of UV. I let each one of them set for about 30 to 45 seconds because I knew I'd be filling in more and more and more, and I didn't want to spend 4 minutes on each little puddle of resin. So I just got it to set so it wouldn't run, and then moved on to the next one, and then did that over and over and over. And then I spent about 2 minutes dedicated just curing the entire base. And as you can see, it's creating a crystal clear layer over that red paint, and it's just pulling the red color straight through, and it makes it look like it's a little puddle of red. And that's actually exactly what I was looking for, and it worked really well. I'm super happy with the way this is coming out. And again, I'll link all of the resin and the light that I'm using right now in the description, because I was looking at some UV resin on Amazon, and it's $20 to $30 and like $13 or $14 for a light. And I picked these 2 bottles and light bulb and UV light up for maybe like $5 or $8. I don't remember exactly what it was. But I try to hunt down like the cheapest version of everything. And just, you know, it's a gamble. But honestly, I have yet to lose on anything that I've bought from Temu. All of these molds came from Temu. It's just, I don't know where they're getting the stuff from. If they're just one-off, like from the manufacturers of like legitimate companies or whatever, I have no idea. It's very similar to Wish, but with really high quality stuff, and I absolutely love it. So just adding in some extra detail here, just because I was like, the brush is way too big. I wanted it to look like the blood was spilling out, but I didn't want to like overdo it. So just a little toothpick, dripping some resin while I have the light, so that way it doesn't run all over and like spill out of the base. And it actually ended up working really well because I was able to get the resin exactly where I wanted it, and it stayed right in place without any issues. And then coming back through, filling another one up just so that way it looks correct. And then I did notice that there was a pretty big air bubble, so I poked that out, and now it's time to cure the whole base and just kind of work around it. Now that that's done, I cut that 4 minutes out, so you don't have to sit through that again. And then just a really dark black. I'm gonna go around and rim the base with the black, because everybody always says that it's so important to have the crisp black ring on your base. I was originally going to just paint the base ring black, but I really liked the idea to paint all of the edge of this base black, and I think it really accentuates the rest of it. Like the yellow color, it doesn't overwhelm the red anymore, and I think it looks pretty sharp. So while I'm finishing this up, one thing that I learned from this video is that while I'm showing you the base, I have to be extremely careful how I position it for the camera so that way it focuses. I found this trick to put my hand right there so that way it stays more focused on what I want it to, but that I was so excited that this base looked so neat that I rushed and painted up a mini, and I did some pretty cool stuff with just some apple barrel paint, and it turned out really good. I did dry brushing, I did multiple layers, I did all kinds of cool techniques on this Space Marine. And then I even did one of the transfer stickers for the first time on here as well. But I didn't record myself on that, so it was a mess up on my part, so hopefully next time I'll catch it. But I hope you really like it. Thanks for watching, and as always, leave a comment, subscribe, like, and share.